So tell us, Jessi, how can you manage a crisis in a digital world?
Well, we're seeing a lot of crises starting on social media these days, so it's a really good question. Honestly, every crisis is different. I think that the first thing that you need to do is not react. I think when I see companies handle crises in a really bad way, it's because they reacted too quickly. They either got defensive or they didn't have all of the facts. So taking a step back and saying, okay, what I have now are a lot of people saying some negative things about the company. The first thing I would do is define what a lot is to your company. If you are talking about, let's say that you've got a Facebook page with 100,000 fans on it and you have 7 people who are really mad at the comment section, that's not a crisis. And that's not something that your community management team wants to be on there, just being very reactive about. That's a great way to make the problem a lot worse, and it's going to justify, what's already happening on the page, and more people will jump on. So the first thing I would say is take a step back. Second thing I would say is, again, define what a crisis is. And ideally, you do this before there's a problem. So maybe the first thing you could do today is start that conversation with your team that says, okay, if I wanted to benchmark what levels of a crisis are and what maybe our plan would be if any of those things happen. So if it's fewer than 100 people involved, we're going to just sit back, we're going to watch. And again, this is all depending on the scale of the page. If we've got up to 500 people whom we're now seeing using the same hashtag, the hashtag may start trending soon, we need to start coming up with a response plan. There are various ways to do that. You could decide to use the hashtag that they're using so that you know that they see it, or you could decide to not use the hashtag because you don't want to draw more people's attention to it. So that's actually the thing you want to avoid the most, is taking something that was a big deal to a very small group of people and making it a big deal to everybody that follows your page. So again, those are things that can be avoided. More often than not, you don't want to step into that. Like, more often than not, it's going to dwindle on its own. People have pretty short attention spans, particularly if it's a customer complaint or if it's people who don't like the new model of your product. If you're dealing with a crisis that is a natural disaster, if you're dealing with somebody that got hurt, your response is going to be really, really different. Those need to be taken very seriously. And you need to make sure that you sound like a human. If it's something that you owe an apology on and you've done the research internally at the company quickly, come right out and say you're sorry. Be as honest and as human as you possibly can, because you're a human and you are writing it. And even though you are coming into a brand page, that is very, very important. So those are some of the things that I would say when responding to crisis.
And how do you involve public relations into the blogosphere?
Bringing PR into the blogosphere, man, I love working with bloggers who started in PR. I know that makes me biased. I was a blogger first and then I got into PR, but had already been in marketing. They're professional. They know what they want. They know what I need. They deliver things on time. So I think that it's a pretty natural progression. I would say the thing that bloggers and PR people have in common is that more often than not, we're looking to make connections. And that could be friendships, that could be colleagues, but we are people who are usually reaching for somebody else out there. So those two things kind of naturally go hand in hand for me. But when it comes to integrating, being a PR person who's looking for partnerships, that's maybe a different answer. That means that, I have to set expectations that are very clear up front. I want to look for somebody that's got a lot of personality, and generally speaking, I only work with positive people. I don't work with people who post a lot of negative things. I don't have time for that energy, and neither do my clients.
And can you tell us the difference between working from the US President, Barack Obama, and having a normal client like a product like Biscotti?
That's a great question. Well, they're pretty different. I'm usually pretty sure I'm not going to embarrass my country when I post about Biscotti. So that would be the core difference. But I would say that working for somebody like the president, like President Obama, who is very digitally savvy, who really cares about people, who is very, very funny. I mean, he's just such a smart man. He's got a very quick sense of humor. Trying to write for somebody like that will make you better. I would say to anybody that wants to be a better writer, get into politics. You have to turn around things. You have to learn how to write really quickly. You are always on a deadline. The work you're doing matters. It matters a lot. And so that's a really good way to get better at anything because it's something that counts. So even though I'm working on things like Biscotti now, I write it better, I write it faster. My images are crisp because I learned a lot from the people on the campaign. So the two are not totally different from each other, but obviously very honored to have worked for somebody like that.
And on a light note, we know that you have your own blog. So can you tell us a little bit about how would you enjoy writing about food?
So I would say this is what's really interesting, and you may find it happening to some of you. I started with a food blog, but I haven't been able to keep up with it because now it's my job. I still cook all the time. I love it. But really, I would say Instagram has become really what's taken the place of a blog for me. And I think that's probably happened with a lot of people on YouTube as well. What used to be on Blogspot, what used to be longer form content, I do still have a Tumblr page where I post recipes from time to time. But more often than not, they're links to Bon Appetit recipes or New York Times recipes. Instagram is really what I'm using because I think that picture is really able to convey my personality and also just kind of where I'm at. I was, posted a picture of my colleague Joseph at Marmalade last night because we had the most amazing dinner. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to see what I had for lunch, you probably shouldn't follow me on Instagram.
Well, thank you very much, Jessi, for this interview.
Hey, Eric, my pleasure.